In our two previous videos, we've learned how to select records from our database table where first name or last name is equal to the value of the parameter that we pass in. And for the record to be selected in the case of this SQL query, for example, the value that we have in database table column called last name will need to be an exact match to the value that we pass in as a parameter. This is because we use equal sign here. So the last name will need to be equal to the last name which is in a database table. But what if we do not want an exact match? What if we want to select all records that have their last name begin with a certain string or end with a certain string? And to do that, we can use SQL Advanced like expression that allows us to select records that begin with a certain string, end with a certain string, or even contain a certain string. So let's do that. I will copy, for example, this query and I'll paste it here. And we will edit it a little bit to select all users whose first name or their last name contain a keyword that we pass in. So I will rename the method findUsers by keyword, like this. And this one will be keyword, and this one will be keyword. And now I will edit my query. I'm saying select all records from a database table called users where first name, like, and then percent, and then named parameter keyword. So this percent represents 0 characters, a 1 character, or many characters. Or in other words, it doesn't matter what is the beginning of the string of the value that we have in a database table column. What's important is that it has to end with the keyword that we pass in. Okay, what if we wanted first name to begin with a keyword? So I will delete percent and I'll say it will begin with a keyword with the value that parameter keyword contain, but it doesn't matter what it ends with. And for that, I will use percent. It doesn't matter what the string ends with, it must begin with the keyword that we pass in. But what if we want to find the user whose first name contains the keyword? To do that, we will simply surround keyword with percent sign. So it doesn't matter what the first name begins with, and it doesn't matter what the first name ends with. It must contain somewhere in the middle or somewhere in the first name this keyword that we pass in. Okay? Now I have specified first name, and now I will use or user last name like, and then I will use named parameter keyword. And just like with the first name, I will provide percent at the beginning and at the end, telling my SQL query that it doesn't matter what the last name begins with, and it doesn't matter what the last name ends with, it must contain this keyword. And this is it. Let's try creating a unit test for it, then run it and see how it works. So I'll switch to user repository test. Scroll a little bit up to my last unit test. So I'll copy this test method and I'll paste it and I'll rename it test. Let's copy the method name, find user by keyword, and paste it here like this. Now it's not going to be last name by a keyword. Let's say we want to find all records that have their first name or last name begin with car. And then we will delete this and find user by a keyword and pass in a keyword like this. And I can edit this, for example, assertion, and then I can check that the user record that we find their last name, for example, get last name, and we'll say contains keyword. And since our SQL query checks for the first name and the last name, I will also check here for the first name. And I'll do or, and I will put it on new line. User get first name contains keyword, like this. So now I can run this test method and see if it works. Let's run it as JUnit test. And here we go, we got a green bar, meaning all test methods have passed. Now let's try an exact match for the last name, for example. It should also pass, so let me run it as unit test. Very good, the bar is green. I can also choose a few characters that last name contains, so I will delete half of the last name and leave Polov only. Now let's run this example, it should still pass. The bar is green, and we can check for the first name. For example, the first name was Sergey. I'll delete a couple of characters from the end, and I will delete the beginning of the word as well. And now we'll run it as unit test. And here we go. It works, the bar is green, so let's continue.